All right, so a lot of future lawyers think about this question, like, do you need perfect English to be a successful lawyer?
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to try to answer that today using some insights from Amish Agrawala,
Okay.
a pretty successful Indian lawyer.
Yeah.
We're going to be taking a deep dive into one of his videos from his YouTube channel.
Cool.
It's called Law Chambers of Amish Agrawala,
Okay.
and he tackles this topic head on.
Yeah, this is a good question, and I think it speaks to a lot of people who are maybe intimidated by the legal profession or
Right.
feel like they need to have this kind of like, unattainable level of language proficiency.
Exactly.
It's fascinating because, we're looking at language, but also like how people perceive you
Right.
and legal strategy all kind of tied together. So
Right.
it's not just about speaking well. It's
Yeah.
about understanding how language works effectively in this very specific world.
Exactly. And, he makes it clear right off the bat that reading and writing in English, that's absolutely essential for any lawyer practicing in India.
Yeah.
He points out that judgments, legal documents, pretty much everything
Yeah.
are primarily in English.
It's the foundation.
Yeah, and like relying on translations, he's like, no, that's not
Yeah.
always reliable.
Not practical.
Yeah.
Especially when you're dealing with huge volumes of legal text.
Tons of legal text.
Right.
Exactly. And I think this brings up a really interesting point about
Yeah.
the reality of the Indian legal system.
Exactly.
Even though there are so many languages spoken in India,
Yeah.
the legal framework
Yeah.
primarily operates in English,
Yeah.
which is something that I think is
It has big implications for anyone who wants to practice law there.
huge implications for anyone who wants to practice law there.
Absolutely.
But here's where I think things get really interesting.
Okay.
He argues that flawlessly spoken English
Okay.
isn't the be-all, end-all of success in Indian courts.
Oh, interesting.
He suggests that using overly polished language
Okay.
might actually be a disadvantage,
Interesting.
especially in lower courts.
Oh, that's interesting. So it's almost like you need to know
Right.
when to dial it back a little bit
Exactly.
and be more straightforward.
And I think his point is that
Yeah.
effective communication is about adapting your language to your audience.
Yes.
So think about it. Judges in lower courts, they handle a huge volume of cases.
Right.
They might not be familiar with this like super formal
Yeah.
legal language.
And they might not have the time
Right.
to wade through
Exactly.
like overly complex language.
And to them, overly complex language
Yeah.
could come across as like insincere or condescending.
Right. Like you're trying to show off.
Right.
Or you're not really getting to the heart of the matter.
Right.
It's about making sure everyone in the room understands the arguments.
Yes. And he emphasizes this idea
Yeah.
that building a clear logical argument and backing it up with solid evidence
Yeah.
is way more persuasive
Right.
than just being eloquent.
Substance over style.
Yes.
Eh.
And he even shares an anecdote
Okay.
about a junior lawyer
Oh, wow.
who won a case
Well, okay.
against a much more eloquent opponent
Wow.
simply by focusing on the core of their argument.
So that's a perfect example of
Yeah.
what he's talking about. Right?
It totally is.
Like, it highlights that legal success really depends on the strength of your legal reasoning
Yeah.
and the evidence that you present,
Right.
not just how smoothly you can deliver it.
Exactly.
It's about the content.
Exactly. And he doesn't just talk about this in theory.
Okay.
He gives really practical advice.
Oh, that's good.
He encourages aspiring lawyers to become experts at structuring their arguments effectively
Okay.
and choosing their words carefully.
Yeah.
And he really stresses this idea
Yeah.
of making every word count,
Mm-hmm.
especially because you have very limited time to present your case in court.
Right.
And he even talks about this technique that he uses called compressing information into concise points.
I like that.
Yeah.
Compressing information.
And he says it's something he's still refining
Wow.
after years of practice.
So even he is like constantly working on this.
Right.
That's really valuable, I think, for people to hear that.
Absolutely.
Because it shows that even experienced lawyers are
Yeah.
always working on improving their communication.
Exactly.
It's not something you just like achieve
Yeah.
and then you're done.
Right. You don't just arrive.
Right.
You have to keep working at it.
Exactly.
And his focus on clear communication really resonated with me,
Yeah.
especially when you think about his own story
Yeah.
about struggling with self-doubt in court.
Oh, interesting.
Like, it seems like even he had to work on finding that balance between being precise
Right.
and being confident.
That's a tough balance.
Right.
Yeah, because you want to make sure you're getting all of the details right.
Yeah.
But you also don't want to sound like you're unsure of yourself.
Right.
It's a tough line to walk.
Exactly. And his willingness to share those challenges, I think, is really impactful
Yeah.
because it makes those feelings of insecurity,
Yeah.
which are so common for people who didn't grow up speaking English.
Right.
Like, it makes those feelings feel completely normal.
It makes you feel like you're not alone in those struggles.
Likely.
It's very humanizing.
Absolutely.
Yeah. It also reminds us that even really successful professionals
Right.
often struggle with self-doubt.
Yeah.
And those struggles can actually be really powerful motivators for growth.
Absolutely. And he even gives a concrete example
Oh, cool.
of how he compresses information.
Okay.
He had this case involving a complicated land dispute.
Okay.
And to make sure the judge could really grasp the situation,
Yeah.
he boiled it down to 3 main points:
Okay. Let's hear it.
the dates of ownership, any written agreements, and evidence of encroachment.
So, like, just the essential.
Just the essentials.
The core elements of the case.
Talk about making every word count.
Yeah, that's a great example of how focusing on those essential elements,
Right.
even in a complex case,
Yeah.
can make your argument so much more persuasive.
Absolutely. And it makes you wonder,
Yeah.
could this approach be useful in other situations
Yeah.
where you need to explain something complicated?
Oh, absolutely.
Right.
I think this idea of compressing information
Yeah.
is relevant in any field
Right.
where clear communication is important.
Absolutely.
Whether you're presenting a business proposal or teaching a concept or even just explaining something to a friend,
Right.
the ability to distill complex information
Right.
down to its key components
Yeah.
is invaluable.
It is. And he doesn't shy away
Yeah.
from being honest about those early days in his career,
Oh, wow.
when he would try so hard to sound perfect in court
Okay.
that he would actually start stuttering and doubting himself.
Oh, man. I can relate to that. That feeling of like, you're trying so hard to get it right,
Yeah.
and then you just kind of freeze up.
Right. And it's so inspiring
Yeah.
that he uses this personal story
Right.
to reassure listeners that feeling insecure about your language skills,
Yeah.
it's completely normal
It is.
and that you can absolutely overcome it.
Yeah, and it's a powerful reminder that even the most accomplished individuals
Right?
often face those challenges and insecurities.
That's right.
And what sets them apart is their willingness to persevere and continue learning.
Exactly. And that leads perfectly
Yeah.
into his final message, which is all about confidence.
Okay.
He emphasizes that those who have really strong English skills
Yeah.
shouldn't become complacent,
Right.
and those who may not be as fluent
Okay.
shouldn't get discouraged.
Right. So don't get too comfortable,
Right.
but also don't give up
Don't give up.
if you feel like you're not there yet.
And he says, ultimately, it's your confidence
Yes.
in your understanding of the law.
Yeah.
And your ability to present your case effectively,
Mm-hmm.
that truly makes a difference.
He's really highlighting the importance of
Yeah.
focusing on the substance of your message
Right.
and believing in your ability to convey it effectively.
Right.
Fluency is just one element
Exactly.
of effective communication.
Yeah.
Passion, conviction,
Yes.
a deep understanding of your subject matter.
Yeah.
Those can be even more compelling.
Absolutely. So
Yeah.
what does this all mean for all of you out there listening?
Right.
I think his insights offer a really refreshing perspective.
Okay.
Yes, English is definitely important
Yeah.
in the Indian legal system,
Especially for those legal documents.
especially for reading and writing legal documents.
Yeah.
But instead of stressing about achieving this perfect fluency,
Right.
maybe we should be focusing on developing
Yeah.
clear logical thinking,
Yes.
building a strong foundation of knowledge in our respective fields,
Mm-hmm.
and honing the ability to communicate our ideas effectively,
Yes.
even if our grammar isn't
Yeah.
always impeccable.
He's challenging that traditional emphasis on eloquence as the only way to be a good communicator.
Exactly.
He's showing that clarity, conciseness, and a deep understanding of your topic
Right.
can be just as important, if not more so,
Absolutely.
especially in a legal setting.
It makes you think.
Right. It does.
How much does this apply to other professions?
Yeah.
Or even just everyday life?
Right.
Is being a smooth talker always an advantage?
Good question.
Or can it sometimes actually get in the way
Yeah.
of truly connecting with your audience
Right.
and getting your point across?
That's a great question. And I think, his experience
Yeah.
within the Indian legal system
Mm-hmm.
really raises some interesting questions
It does.
about how different cultures perceive eloquence.
Yeah.
In environments where being straightforward and concise is valued,
Mm,
a more direct communication style
right.
might be more effective.
Absolutely.
It's all about adapting to your audience
Right.
and the context of the situation.
It really makes you think
Yeah.
about how different communication styles can be perceived
Mm,
and how crucial it is
yeah,
to adapt your approach
absolutely.
based on who you're talking to in the specific situation.
It emphasizes
Yeah.
how important it is to be aware of your own communication strengths and weaknesses,
Mhm.
and to always be working on improving your ability to connect with others,
Right.
no matter how fluent you are in a particular language.
Yeah. It really does make you stop and think about the way people use language. Like,
Mm-hmm.
is it genuinely effective or just a way to cover up a lack of substance?
It's a good point. I think analyzing communication styles, both our own and others, can actually make us more effective communicators ourselves. It's
Okay.
definitely worth thinking about.
Absolutely. And his experience in the Indian legal system really got me thinking about whether eloquence is always the best approach
Yeah,
or is sometimes a more straightforward style
right.
is more impactful.
Yeah, it's a great point. His story highlights that eloquence isn't this like one-size-fits-all concept.
Yeah.
It can take different forms depending on the context and the culture.
Exactly.
Sometimes clear and concise communication can be the most eloquent approach.
It really can. This has been a fascinating deep dive
It has.
into the world of legal communication,
Yeah.
inspired by Amish Agrawala's insights.
Absolutely.
What are your biggest takeaways from this? Was there anything that particularly surprised you or that you connected with?
Yeah, for me, the most important takeaway is that while strong language skills are definitely valuable,
Mhm.
they're not the only path to success, especially in a challenging field like law.
Right.
The ability to think critically, build persuasive arguments, and communicate your ideas with confidence can be just as crucial.
I couldn't agree more. It's a great reminder that we should focus on developing a well-rounded set of communication skills
Yeah.
rather than just chasing perfect fluency.
Exactly. And perhaps most importantly, Agarwala's journey encourages us to embrace our own unique communication styles
Right.
and recognize that eloquence can manifest in many ways. Never underestimate the power of genuine confidence in your abilities.
That's a fantastic note to end on. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive, everyone.